All right, how's everybody doing? Mike Jeffers here, Chicago Jazz Magazine, ChicagoJazz.com, and Chicago Music Revealed. It is Friday. Finally, we made it to Friday. Hopefully, everybody is doing good. Just wanted to hope everyone is doing well. Check in with everybody here. Make sure everybody's staying safe. Everybody's doing well. We got a great show today. Yesterday was fun having Mike Steven on. Of course, Mike Steven, the host of Outside the Loop Radio on WGN 720 AM. It was a pleasure talking to him yesterday and having him on the show. And of course, all of the guests this past week. You can see everything up on chicagomusicrevealed.com, so everybody can check that out. We had some great shows this week, and today is no different. It is an absolute pleasure to have Shonn Hinton's going to be joining us here in 1 second. We're going to be talking about a brand new release that he put out digitally called We Will Survive, but he's got a huge background, musical background, and we're going to be talking with him about his background, about the concept of the new release, and a whole lot more. Also, just before we bring Shonn on, I want to make sure that I mention we've got a lot of the information as far as the GoFundMe pages and the music relief funds. You can check all that out on ChicagoJazz.com. We're keeping that up to date. So if you are not aware of what's happening with that, be sure to head over there. It's very important for all of us to stick together as a community and just try to get through this whole situation because it's quite a situation. All right, so comments, questions, and of course I'm running all the tech stuff on here. Good news, everything seems to be working. So if you're having problems hearing me or something, then let me know. But hopefully everybody is dialed in and everything will run smoothly as it has for 3 full weeks. It is a pleasure to have everyone watching this on a regular basis. So without further ado, I want to bring up Shonn Hinton. Shonn, how are you?
I'm wonderful, man. How are you?
I'm great, man. It is a pleasure to talk to you. And I know that we have a mutual friend, Chris, who runs a whole lot of great stuff up in Wisconsin. I know you're based out of Wisconsin, but you tour all over the world with many different musicians. I mean, John Legend, Mary J. Blige, just to name a couple. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to find out a little bit about this brand new release you put out. It's on a digital release called We Will Survive. And is that with you and your your band Shotgun? Is that the name of the full band that's on the release? And what's the release? What's the purpose of the whole release?
Yes, it is by myself and my band Shotgun, Shonn Hinton and Shotgun. And the premises of the song, We Will Survive. Are you there? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh
I think
yeah.
I lost
Yeah.
you.
No, I'm here. We're good. Keep going.
Okay, the premises of the song, Chris, who's our manager, was telling me, she's like, you know what, Shonn? You should that speaks to the current situation that we're, you know, dealing with right now. And that, along with the recent passing of my grandmother, she passed March 23rd. So this was a combination of giving people hope because when you look on the news, it's information that we need, but it almost has an agenda of pushing fear. And I didn't want to be fearful in this time of what's going on, and then being fearful with the passing of my grandmother. Just trying to figure out where I was going to go and what I was going to do. From a mental standpoint. And I sat down, and the words just came effortlessly for me. Like we are living in perilous times. It's our troubled times that we live in, but I think it's imperative that we try to keep a positive outlook on what's going on because, you know, things will get better in every situation, in every thing that we go through in our lives. Trouble is only temporary, and days absolutely are on the way. Keep a positive outlook on that when we look at it from that standpoint. So I wanted that song to embody that. So with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're dealing with right now, I just wanted to help give everybody out there in the world some hope, a ray of hope. We will survive. We will get through this thing.
Well, that's a great message, and I mean, there's no other way to look at it, really. I mean, we have to make it through this, obviously, and we're going to make it through this.
Absolutely.
And you know, like what you said, I mean, to be able to write this and in tribute to your grandmother who passed away, and the fact that the words just came flowing directly out of you. I mean, how many other songs? Because you've written a lot of different songs, a lot of different original compositions. Was this one of the ones that, well, it sounds like it was like just straight from your soul, very meaningful, and it was an easy, almost like a you know, free flowing song that came directly out of you. It was probably something that maybe you've never experienced before when you're writing music.
You know, the "We Will Survive" definitely was is it was different than any song that I have ever written, because I always try to make sure that I write from a personal standpoint. I give you an example. Our debut album, "Long Live Shotgun," myself and my bass player Alex Ace Book Julian, he had this idea. He had the chord progression, and he was saying, "I see this song about our name being in lights." And at that moment, I knew, like, okay, because this is our aspiration. We want to. Our goal is for Shonn Hinton and Shotgun to be in the names of different artists, big artists. You know what I'm saying? Artists that we will go and see. I went to go see John Mayer at Summerfest in Milwaukee. I've seen a Rolling Stones show in Milwaukee at Summerfest. So these are groups that I look up to, that I admire. And so that worked. So that was a personal song. But this "We Will Survive" song really, 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 it spoke to me personally as well. It was okay, I fell off the horse, now get back on. We're gonna get through this. You know, like, I think for me, with my grandmother's passing, back in '93, my grandfather had passed away, and my mother took it the hardest out of everybody. And I remember, you know, being 13 when that happened. So my expectation with my grandmother's passing was that my mother was going to completely spaz, just like my grandfather's. You know, my grandfather's passing where she spazzed.
Yeah.
But she didn't. She cried, she grieved, but she didn't grieve from a hopeless place. So that added fuel to how I wrote this song. You know, the opening line is, "In these perilous times, in these troubled days, don't give up on hope. Please keep the faith. We will survive." And it speaks to grief. It speaks to this COVID-19 pandemic. It speaks to people who are dealing with cancer, domestic violence situations, homelessness, whatever it is. I just feel like that's the resolve to any kind of situation that we may be going through. So this is what it was personal for me, because my mother is also a breast cancer survivor.
Oh, wow.
So this was, yeah, absolutely, man. So it worked. It just worked perfectly, you know. And I'm just so glad that I was able to be used to write a great song.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you could have, nobody could have said it any better. So that was a wonderful explanation of everything, because it really, and especially in this time, you know, I see a lot of people, and I know you being an artist, myself being an artist, plus running Chicago Jazz Magazine, Chicago Music Revealed. I'm the director of programming at the Epiphany Center for the Arts. And I mean, I'm talking to a lot of artists. I'm talking to a lot of musicians throughout the entire country. I realize today, I know a lot of musicians that have passed away from COVID-19, or people in the business that have passed away from COVID-19, which I'm sure you have that same connection. And,
Absolutely.
you know, just looking around and seeing everything, it's like, we have to keep a solid outlook. Otherwise, when we get finally to the end of this, it would have beaten us. And there's no way to think of it that way. So when you say "we will survive," that's just a great way of saying it, I think.
Absolutely. It is. It really is. It's again, it's the resolve, man. We have the power to beat this thing. The spirit, the fighting spirit within us all could overcome this thing. I was watching, I forgot the gentleman's name, but I watched him on CNN at night, and he was telling me how he was saying on the show how he had to fight this thing even when he didn't have the strength. He felt like he didn't have the strength. He got himself up to do what he needed to do, to breathe, to stretch, to do things like that. And that's what it all boils down to. And, you know, I'm not trying to make light or say anybody's situation is less than what it is. Not at all. I just feel like there's a fighter in all of us. I believe that we can all overcome this situation as well as any other situation.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the whole outlook, and thinking about as an artist. I mean, I sometimes maybe artists and musicians and performers who have to put themselves out on the line. They're putting their craft out on the line, and for the criticism, good or bad. And
Right.
maybe all of us have a little bit different perspective when things like this start to happen, as opposed to back in the day when it didn't happen. I mean, so my thought is that when we're thinking like this as a musician and as a performer, we're used to dealing with things and then having to adjust. And I wonder how many
Right.
people that don't have to do that on a regular basis, this kind of thing can get real overwhelming. So hearing your thoughts on it and hearing what you're saying, I think is going to do a really good service for a lot of people, because they need that perspective.
Absolutely. Agreed, man. Agreed.
So let's talk a little bit about your background too, because we're talking about criticism, we're talking about putting yourself out on the line. I mean, you started playing. Now I read a little bit about you started playing guitar when you were 12, I think is what I saw.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
mean, and you took it from there to all of a sudden performing and working with John Legend, working with Mary J. Blige, obviously touring with them. How did that come up? Did you go to college? Did you go to school for guitar? I mean, obviously you loved it at a young age.
Well, I come from a family of guitarists. My grandfather, who was a pastor and bishop at a church, the name of the church was called Johnson's Temple. My grandfather's name was Enoch Johnson. That was my first introduction into guitar playing. My favorite guitar player growing up as a kid was my grandfather, and I was a drummer. So my grandfather would play play the guitar. I would play the drums, and my mother was the pianist, and that's where the love actually started to develop. My grandfather gave me my first guitar, put a set of strings on it, showed me my first three chords. And from that moment, I was completely hooked and mesmerized. And it's so funny because my grandfather's brothers, they all played guitar. So we would have this annual service that we would do every year in April, and they would all come to Milwaukee. So I got uncles in Chicago, Waterloo, Iowa, Salis, Mississippi, and they would all come to Milwaukee, and we would have this service together. And I would see all of these cool looking guitars, and I'm just little punk kid. Like, man, if I knew how to play the guitar, I would be so cool. So, so to get the guitar, and my grandfather showed me my first three chords, I was like, okay, this is it. This is where the journey begins. And Mike, when I say I suffered from my instrument, I really did. Give you a real quick story about the suffering.
Yeah.
My bedtime as a kid was 8:30 p.m. every night, except for the weekends. So because I'm so mesmerized with the guitar, I would close my bedroom door, turn my TV off, turn my radio on, turn the volume up just enough so I could hear it, so I could try to play with what I was hearing on the radio. My mother was wise to my tricks, so she would catch me, open the door. I would get a whooping for not going to bed at 8:30 and playing. So if you talk to my mother today, she's like, yeah, he suffered for his craft. I really did, because it was a daily thing. But I played guitar, and I still, I felt like I was dabbling in guitar because I felt like my claim to fame was being a drummer, because I grew up playing drums. Even as a teenager, just playing drums at my church, and then when I got the opportunity to play guitar, I jumped at it, and that's where I stayed. So I really didn't play drums anymore. How I got introduced into the secular world, Summerfest 2002. This group by the name of Jersey Ave, which is a local R&B group that had made it, that from Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. They played Summerfest, and the drummer, his name is Rex Hardy. He's a Chicago native, still lives in Chicago. He played drums as a musical director for Mary J. Blige as well. Me and him started playing with Mary at the same time. Well, before we got this gig, Rex was touring with a few gospel acts, and I was really just trying to make a name for myself in Chicago, because every time I turned around, I would hear about some choir or some ensemble doing a live recording all of the concerts, all of the great musicians in Chicago. I just felt like I needed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave him a videotape of me playing with a local gospel artist, and he liked what he had heard, and I thought I was getting ready to do a gospel tour. But then I get a phone call and it's Rex saying, "Yo, man, I got a gig for you, but the only thing, we leaving on a weekday," which probably I think would have been a Monday or a Tuesday. At this time, Mike, I'm a medical records clerk for a healthcare center. So I called my boss on a Saturday, because that's when I got the phone call, and I quit my job immediately, not even knowing the artist I was working with, who I was working for. So when I called Rex back and he tells me, he's asking me what kind of amp that I use, I'm green at this point, man. I'm thinking I probably would have had to bring my own stuff.
Sure.
So he tells me with Dave Hollister, and I'm like, Dave Hollister? So now I shoot for the stars, man, and I actually caught one playing for Dave Hollister.
Wow.
So that was my introduction into the game. And Mike, when I say I played, and when I say I played with a chip on my shoulder, I wasn't angry or upset, but I really felt like I had something to prove, because Milwaukee gets such a bad rep when it comes to, concerts coming to the city. Now, I mean, with the exception of right now, we're starting to get a lot more things happening here at the Pfizer. You're seeing a lot of more artists coming to perform. But back like when I was 20, I want to say I was like 22. We wasn't getting a lot of concerts that would come to Milwaukee like that. So,
well, you guys didn't have the venues
the
venues you have now weren't. I mean, maybe they were there, but they're not on the national, scene like they are now.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
they
like
on the national. Exactly. That and that's what it was. So I had something to prove. And every time people would approach me like, "Man, you cold? Where you from?" I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I would even quote my zip code, man. That's how crazy it was. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53216. Like, yeah, that's where I came from. And my name started to snowball through the industry. And it was so funny because I played with such intensity and conviction. Everybody started deeming me little Jimi Hendrix, because I'm biting the strings, playing behind my neck when it was time for me to shine. But my name started to circulate in the industry, and I started working with acts like Kelly Price. Her husband, who was her manager at the time, was asking me on that tour, like, "What are you doing after this tour is over?" I'm like, "Nothing. I'm going back home.
Right.
I have to look for another job." But from playing with Dave, I started touring with Kelly Price, who actually was a part of a play with Tyler Perry. I believe that Tyler Perry kind of centered this role for Kelly Price, but she brought her band to be the band for that play. So I did a Tyler Perry play with Kelly Price. I've worked with Angie Stone. And then around 2004, Rex calls me again and says, "Hey, Mary's putting a brand new band together. She's never had a guitar player before like that. Like, she's never toured with a guitar player. Are you interested in a gig?" Absolutely. For sure was interested in the gig. So I fly to New York, and it was so funny. Before I flew to New York, the tour manager called me. He's like, "Hey, this is the dates. We don't rent backline. You have to buy your own. You have to bring your own gear." I said, "No problem." So I took my last check from the tour, the current tour I was on, and went to Manny's in New York and bought a guitar amp, because we were using backline on the gospel tour that I was doing, that I was on. So I went to Manny's. From Manny's, I went to SIR in New York. Mary was waiting for me. They were waiting. The whole band was there. So they call out the songs. I play the songs. After I get through, Mary said, "You want the job?" I was like, "Absolutely want the job." So, and again, that's how it started to work, man. With Mary, I got a chance to play on Oprah with Mary. We've done soap operas with Mary. We've done the Grammys with Mary, American Music Awards.
Wow.
And through that relationship, playing with Mary, there was a tour we were getting ready to do, and I want to say this was like 2008, where it was Mary J. Blige and Jay-Z. Well, the musical director at the time for Jay-Z, who was putting the band together, was Amir Questlove Thompson, the drummer for the group.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And what we had in common was he was cool with my godfather. His name is Spanky Chalmers Alford, who played with D'Angelo. God rest his dead.
Oh, yeah, wow.
So Amir heard me play guitar at Center Stage in Burbank, California, and I told him, Spanky was my godfather. That was it. He was hooked. So Quest is sending me songs from Al Green's album that my godfather played on, and a couple of years later, I get a phone call. It's like, "Hey, Shonn, this Questlove was good." I'm like, "I'm good, man." He said, "You want to play for John Legend?" I was like, "Yes." He said, "Okay, cool." So then I get a call from John Legend. I got the gig. John was the one that told me how much I was making, told me the sound that he was looking for. My first gig with him, they were on the second leg of the Evolver tour. So playing with John, my first show was Good Morning America live at Central Park.
Wow.
And so, I mean, the world was watching, and I got to so that worked out perfect. So now I'm hooked in with the Philly scene now because John's band were all from Philadelphia.
Ah,
so
okay.
Quest is from Philly, so
Yeah.
Philly knows who I am. So then through the Philly connection, this guy by the name of Adam Blackstone, who was the musical director for Justin Timberlake and Jay-Z, done all this stuff. He calls me, and it's so funny. This is how you know struggling musicians. That's really a thing. My cell phone was off. Adam Blackstone.
It was shut off. Like it was shut off.
It was off because I hadn't paid my bill because I was broke.
Man. Oh no.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You know, when artists don't want to work, you have to fend for yourself. So I worked it out, man. But Adam Blackstone tweeted me and said, "Hey, man, call me back. I got something for you." So I called Adam from my mom's phone, and he says, "Yo, you want to play for Jill Scott?" Absolutely want to play for Jill Scott. So got the gig, flew out to Philly. Jill heard me play. She loved the way that I played, and I toured with her. We did a VH1 Storytellers, man. That kind of put me on the map because the way that I played one particular song, I think it was called "Come See Me," and it was just all online. So it just started. Everything circulated, man, from playing with Lil Wayne. On the Mary J. and Jay-Z tour, I actually filled in for my good friend Sean Carrington, who played for Jay-Z's portion of that tour. Well, he couldn't make a couple of dates. So, of course, it was just, they wanted me to play. So I ended up playing. I'm like, oh, cool, I can put this on my resume. So it worked out perfect, man. And then just through playing with Mary J., I just had these awesome experiences of working with different artists. I played with Patti LaBelle the day that Luther Vandross had died. I had
oh wow,
did a couple of shows with her. Mary did a show in Japan where it was Mary, Fergie, and Carole King, and I think they call it the Great American Voices Tour, and it was sponsored by Keiko Mung soy sauce. It was that company, and I got to share the stage with Carole King. Like I love music, man, and I love all styles of music. So to be on stage with Carole King, that was amazing to me, man. It was completely a blast.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. You know, but it kind of shows you, I mean, you know, and I think a lot of people, because I've mentioned this before on the show, is that they come on the show and you're playing with all these people, but the people that are in the audience that are casual music fans that come to see Mary J. Blige or John Legend or somebody like that, you know, the music's great. Everything's great. He's the star of the show. They don't realize what the other people on the stage, the fascinating backstories that all of these guys that are backing up these guys have, and all of the different musicians you've performed with all helped you kind of create your own sound, which is why you kept getting more and more gigs. And the thing that I find fascinating when I talk to musicians that have done so much as yourself, was there a gig, or it doesn't sound like, it sounds like you just came out of the box. You were ready to roll. But, you know, you always talk to musicians, and the musicians that, you know, perform around Milwaukee, perform around Chicago, and they're playing the regular gigs, whether it's a Green Mill in Chicago or whether it's up in Milwaukee at a club similar to that. You know, they're playing it every Tuesday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, blah, 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 blah. But the cream of the crop musicians find a way to make every gig really throw down, and you can really, like, you can play with that intensity no matter what's going on in your life. You walk out on stage and it's like go time. And that's the thing.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that I find is so fascinating, but that's also how you get these gigs, because John Legend isn't going to hire somebody that's not like playing up to his level, because what's the point of that? I don't need somebody going through the motions. So is that a conscious effort at first, or was that just naturally instinctive in you and you were able to go for it?
I think it was. I want to say it was just naturally in me, because when I wasn't on the road, Mike, I was playing. Me and the band shot my band shotgun. Before we decided to even be a band, we were always play together and play at these different places. And we would play. We have this place in Milwaukee called the Milwaukee Ale House. They got a stage, and we would play during their like dinner hour or their lunch or dinner
Mm-hmm.
hour. So you had to play above a whisper, but it like we didn't know no better, man. We just this was our stage, and we gave it all, or we didn't give anything at all. So we played as if we were playing to thousands and millions of people. So we had that go for blood mentality every time, and that thing just set with me. So when it was time for me to start playing with these major artists, this was like, riding a bike. I just got on a bike and rode it, and people noticed that. Like, for me, I didn't have time to be nervous, man, because this is something that I truly, truly enjoy doing. I think one of the joys in life for me is being able to play the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So I made sure that every time I got on stage, that I felt that in my heart, and what comes from the heart is going to always reach the heart. Prime example, Mary did the Lilith Fair tour, right? And this particular show we did, it was the Dixie Chicks, Mary J, and I want to say Sarah McLachlan. And Mary did her rendition of Stairway to Heaven. And, people are stiflers about guitar solos.
Sure.
And
especially that one.
Exactly. And the thing is, I think I strayed away from I made sure I paid attention to some of the parts in that song, like when it came to the solo. So I knew when it was time to go to a monumental part, I knew to go there. But there's a couple of bars where I was just completely off the grid, man, and I'm walking up and down the stage, and when I get done, everybody is throwing me the horns on stage, like, yeah, like I was like, okay, this is cool. This is really, really cool. Same thing we did with Mary. We played, I think it was the Hard Rock. They call it the Joint in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, man, we played this show, and some people from Mary's camp, like her management, they was like, man, Slash was out in the audience. I was like, what? And I'm like, I'm glad y'all told me this after the fact.
Yeah, right?
Because I think I would have been nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, man, if I had known that before the show. But after the show was over, I heard that. I was like, okay, cool. So I'm actually on my way to my hotel room in Slash's camp, and Slash is with his camp. And he was like, dude, you're a badass on guitar. And I was like, really? So I hung out with him that night, man. It was so fun. So it's just one of those situations, like, you got to be game on all the time. You can, when you're on stage, that's the time to be on. And you can't look nervous. It just got to be one of them go off or nothing, all or nothing.
That's it. And it takes experiences to get yourself to a certain level and to be able to push out your sound, which is your sound, and you're not copying somebody. Similar like what you did with Stairway to Heaven. It was your sound. You weren't playing Jimmy Page's solo anymore. It was your sound. That's why everybody went, whoa, what is going on here? So, but and that's why you get these gigs. That's why these musicians want to hire somebody like you, because you can do that. And I always think it's interesting too, talking to somebody like you who's playing other people's music, but can still put their own voice in there somehow. Obviously you're playing the parts in the ensemble part, but when there's a solo, when there's something, you can put your own voice in there, but you know when to do it and not detract from anybody you're backing up, because that's the key, right?
Yeah, exactly. I learned that too, man. I learned, Mary was telling us when I first started playing for, and again, Mary didn't have guitar in her stuff, so I had to create parts. But her one thing that stood out to me that she said, okay, you know the song, you've done your homework. Now put your personality. Give me some light embellishments of who you are as a musician. Same thing with Jill. The first time Jill heard me play, and she has guitar up and down her records, man. So I knew the music. And one particular song that we do, which is called Is It the Way? And the beginning of the song, it starts out with me just ripping for a good 16 bars. And in rehearsal, I did it, and Jill was like, "Oh my God, do that again, but don't play the same thing." So each time I had to play something different, and she told me, "I don't ever want to hear the same thing twice. I want to hear, I want to hear originality every time you play."
Oh, that's great, huh? You know what I'm finding too is that, I'm a musician. I've toured. I'm a drummer, by the way. So I've toured. I've done a lot
Yeah,
of
Chris
different
was
stuff.
telling me.
Yeah, yeah. So, but when I would back up musicians, the thing that I loved about playing with certain musicians, and then it was always like, iffy when I was playing with other guys. It's like I would rather be the guy. I'm backing you up. It's not my gig. I'm playing in your band. Just tell me what you
Right.
want. What sound do you want? What do you want me to do? Sounds like all of the artists you're playing with that are international marketed gigantic artists will tell you, "Hey man, I'm looking for this sound. Can you do this? Feel free to go bananas on this one." Whatever. But they're kind of guiding you because it's their music, but they want to make sure that you understand where you should be. I've worked with artists that did that, or I've worked with artists that didn't say anything. And,
Right.
6 months later, everybody's cool with it, but it would have helped at the beginning if somebody said, "Hey,
Absolutely.
just go ahead and do this. Feel free, just blow. Don't worry about it." I'd rather hear that feedback. Sounds like you too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very imperative because you don't want to drive in the dark, man. You want to have some
Right.
type of where you're going, the direction you're headed in. Absolutely.
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
uh,
the worst part about it is if you're doing what they don't want to do, and then they fire you because this guy's not playing what I want to hear. Well, why didn't you just tell
exactly.
me? It would have been very simple.
That sounds like the life of a monitor engineer or a front of house engineer
Yeah,
who
right.
has horrible communication with the artist.
Yeah, yeah. The stage is feeding back, but he thinks it sounds just fine. So keep playing. Don't worry about it. Okay. Not that you've never had that experience, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Shonn Hinton, he's got a new project. It's out right now. We Will Survive. It's digitally released. Shonn, where can people get more information on you? What's your website? What's all that good stuff? And what projects do you have coming up? I know everything's on kind of shutdown right now, but do you have anything in the hopper that once all this stuff breaks free, you're going to be able to start touring again or performing live somewhere?
Absolutely. Well, the song "We Will Survive," you can hear it if you want to learn more about Shonn Hinton and Shotgun. You want to go to www.shonsshotgun.com, and there you'll learn about our story. You'll meet the band, myself, the lead guitarist and frontman, Darren D. Williams. He's my rhythm guitar player. Alex Ace Boogie, Julian, the bass player. Olin Franklin, who's my drummer. And Terry Jeans Jr., who's the secondary drummer when Olin can't make a gig, and he plays percussion and sings background as well. We have an album coming out this summer called Reloaded, and after a 4-year hiatus, because the band, we took some time off because I was touring with Mary J. Blige consistently, and the boys were working on their own projects and things like that. So when we met back up for this album, we had a fresh new perspective. So this album is going to be very, very exciting, man. People are going to love it. We Will Survive is the second single that we released. The first one, we got a song called Turn It Up, which is, I believe, Shonn Hinton and Shotgun's version of Queen's We Will Rock You. It's to get people pumped up about anything that they're feeling good about in life. So we got Turn It Up, we got We Will Survive, but the rest of the album will be out in June. We're looking at a June release. And when this COVID-19 thing is over, my goal is to come to Chicago and play. I was actually supposed to be in Chicago at Reggie's with a good friend of mine. His name was Victor Torres. Shotgun was going to be opening up for him. So
oh, nice. Yeah.
Hopefully all this stuff dies down, man. They're rescheduling and we'll be back out in Chicago. But right now, we're just still trying to put things together. We're trying to figure out after the Safer at Home Act is, done, we can start putting in perspective what we're going to do. But please follow us on our website, and that way you'll know everything that's going on with us.
There you go. And also, we'll stay in contact now too, since we're connected. And as you have
Absolutely.
things popping and going out, I'll be able to pump it out through all of my platforms. And hopefully in I don't know, maybe 2-3 months, we'll have you back on the show, and we'll be talking all about a show down here at Reggie's and somewhere else in Chicago, and everything's back open and everybody's happy and safe and healthy. That's what I'm hoping for.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that day, man. Seriously.
Definitely. All right, Shonn, I really appreciate you being on, and it's great meeting you. And wow, what a great conversation. I can't wait to have another one with you, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Call me anytime, man. I'll be ready.
Definitely. All right. Thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
You too.
All right. All right. That was it. What a way to cap off the week of interviews with Shonn Hinton. I mean, the project he has out, We Will Survive. Check it out, up on Facebook as well, by the way, so you can look at all that. We'll link everything up below. But fascinating. It's always interesting to talk to the guys that are backing up these huge artists, because the story he has is, it's a lot like a lot of the other artists that are backing up these famous artists. They all have a killer backstory. They go through trials and tribulations, like not having your cell phone available when you're hopefully getting a gig. Thank God for Twitter, apparently. But it's fascinating to hear these stories. So hopefully you're enjoying hearing some of these interviews. Hopefully you're hearing and it being introduced to new musicians, new people in the industry. Lydia Liebman being one of them that we had on a couple of days ago. Mike Steven from WGN Radio, his show tomorrow morning, by the way, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. on Outside the Loop Radio, 7:20 a.m. He's going to have the owner of Reggie's on tomorrow morning, who Shonn just talked about. So all of this is great, trying to keep the community together. We've got a lot of great guests next week. I'm going to be announcing things over the weekend on Facebook. So we've got Facebook, Chicago Jazz Magazine. We've also got the Chicago Music Revealed Facebook page, where this is streaming, and also Chicago Music Guide Facebook page, where this is streaming. So that's on Facebook. And then, of course, Instagram, YouTube, chicagomusicrevealed.com. You can check out all the past shows and subscribe to our podcast, The Chicago Jazz Audio Experience. So everybody stay safe. Everybody stay healthy. Have a great weekend. Stay inside. Stay away from people. Watch Netflix. Check out all my back shows if you've missed any. That's a great way to spend a weekend, I think. I don't know. I'm just talking out loud here. And hopefully I will see everyone on the scene in person sometime. But if not, hopefully I will see you all next Monday at 11:30 a.m. for another Chicago Music Revealed. Thanks for watching.